Okay, so here is the 100-foot wired remote. You can use this wired remote. Of course, you all have the wireless, which is nice to have. And with the wireless, it's got 3 controls, just like your wired remote. You can turn the air on only, and that's really nice because when you're done in an attic and you want to clear your hose, you just turn everything off and then turn your air on and it blows the hose clear. So you can turn the air on, and I always recommend when you're in an attic, turn the air on for a couple of seconds, because if there's some remaining material in the hose from the last job, it will allow that hose to blow out and clear itself before you start adding material. So I was just kind of hit the air and then the material. Same with this, the rocker switch here, you got the air and then you got feed all the way. So, but for the most part, you'll be using the wireless. It's a really nice, it's got a 1/4 mile range on these.
Robert, we waste time on no real that when we got that.
Right, so this is great for backup. I mean, sometimes, you know, if you forget to charge your batteries, and I recommend that you have at least 1 extra set of batteries that's always charged.
Was it run
Double A's, 2 double A's, and
all kinds of batteries.
that's perfect. So you're all set. Now the nice thing about this is it has a feature on it that if you were to take it into the attic and lose it in 16 inches deep of material, we have on the receiver on the end a button that you can push and this beeps. Now,
big good, true.
Yep. So if you find that sometimes this is sitting in here and beeping, you just hold this down for 6 seconds and it will shut the beeping noise off. This is the off button. Okay? So what you have here is the actual output of the machine. Your hose is going to output here. So nice thing is this has a built-in pressure gauge so that when you are doing dense pack work, you can cup the end of the hose with your hand and it will tell you what pressure you need to be at. And we have on this gauge a green field. So you don't even have to look at the numbers per se. As long as you're within that green range, you have the proper pressure for dense packing. Now,
Green line on there, so that's what you're talking about?
Yes, there's a green field. Yep. And are you blowing cellulose or fiberglass? Fiberglass. So you're going to be kind of even at the lower end of that green field. The fiberglass only requires 2.5 psi for wall packing and dense packing. Okay. So when you get into cellulose, it's going to require 3.5 and up. Now on the back here of the machine, you have obviously your control panel, and
Can you still see?
Yes, ma'am.
and this is a single blower machine. So for dense packing, you're going to probably turn up to about 2/3 of the way on your control. Okay. Because dense packing requires a lot of air. And so usually when I suggest you start out in your controls and dense packing, that you turn your air, you know, up to 5-ish or in that range. Okay. Again, we have on the front here, if you did not have this connected, you have the ability for the operator here at the machine to turn the air on only, off, or feed. Feed means air and material. So we have a couple of outlets here, as you figured out that this is for the, or they probably wired this for you at the shop, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this auxiliary is, if you have the wireless unit like you do, that's what it's for. IWS, we have what's called an internal wetting system. It would plug into there. Now, the nice thing is you can go ahead and use that other one for, you know, like your iPhone or a charger or something that you need to charge up on site. So it's not strictly used only for IWS, but that'd be the location to put it in. Now,
What did you say IWS was?
internal wetting system. So if you're blowing cellulose is real dusty.
So
and
it wets it as
it kind of adds a mist to the dust to make it so that you can see, and it stabilizes the dust in the attic so it doesn't settle over time. Now these are filters, obviously, and this has a removable cover. Now what some people do is, if they were to make this machine stay in here all the time, you could attach a hose to this, drill a 3-inch hole in the floor, and have it vent outside, bringing in only fresh air, so you're not getting any dust in here.
Okay.
The nice thing about fiberglass is that you're not going to have a lot of dust.
Yeah.
But if you do need to keep these filters clean, and they just easily pop right out. They're only an inch thick, little blue filters. Yeah, or blow them off with air, either way. Yep. And then just stick it right back in there. It is imperative that you have these in here, and it's imperative that you keep them clean, because this is the access for the blower. The thing that will kill your blower is either underpowering it by having a 200-foot long cord, creating a lot of heat friction, or not giving it air and clean air so it can breathe. So just stick this back in there with our handy dandy tool. And it's that simple. Same with this.
It don't matter which side you have that on?
No.
It does.
No, it doesn't. In fact, since you're not permanently attaching this to the floor, you don't even need to have this on there if you don't want it right now.
We will probably do that, because we ain't gonna move that machine around. It'll stay in the truck, I'm sure.
So you have one here, you have another filter there, and then you have another filter on that other side. Okay? That's essentially our walk around. Let me show you your airlock gauge. Now this airlock slide pulls out, and you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 holes, because your airlock is 14 inches. So each hole is an inch. If you're doing an attic, you're going to pull this all the way out, let as much material flow into that airlock as possible. When you're doing a wall, you're going to want to push this in and start out at 4. And then you can drop that pin down there to make sure it doesn't, because we want more air, less material when you're dent packing a wall, because you are using a hose that goes from 3 inches and transitions all the way down to 1.5 inches. We measure the hose on the internal diameter, so that's 1.5 inches on the inside. This is really all you need, because what's going to happen is when you stick this into the wall, it's cut at an angle, it will slide up into the wall. You only really need to clamp this end here, because this is where most of the air pressure is going to come through the hose. So make sure you have a clamp on that. The reason I eliminate these clamps at these joints is because there's not that much pressure coming through here to blow these hoses apart with clamps. Secondly, if you do get a clog in your hose, then you have to carry with you a tool, and you're sitting there for 45 seconds to a minute getting this unloosened and then tighten it back down. It takes time, a lot of time. And the third reason why I don't like to use it is because when you're dragging this hose through a house and they have really nice oak baseboards or pine baseboards, these clamps can mar the baseboard.
Had to choose all things.
Yep. So I usually, even though I provide them, a lot of people want to use them anyway, and then they'll duct tape over the clamps, which is acceptable, but it just takes a lot more work. And this is great because you're not trying to marry the two together. You want to use the duct tape to grab this and this and this, and it will hold it all together. No, that's fine. No, it doesn't have to be pretty.
I know that, but it ain't very good duct tape.
And that's all right too. It's gonna hold, and that should be good enough. Okay. Now, if this hose does clog here, all you need to do is run your knife right around that, and it comes right apart.
Okay.
And now that you have a hose without clamps, it's a padded protection with the duct tape so that it will not mar anything in the house as it drives by.
All right.
So you have 3-inch hose that is reducing down to 2-inch hose that is now reducing down to 1.5 inches. So when you are reducing to go and do wall systems, you do not want to go straight from 3-inch thick down to this, because you will always clog here and it will be a pain. So what we recommend is that you gradually transition down. So we've got 3 inches that's going to transition down to 2.5. You can transition down to 2 if you wanted to, but because of the you can go 1 inch at a time. But when you go 1 inch at a time, you want to make sure that you've got 50-foot length of that hose so that it gives the material time to, transition down further. So we are going to clamp these because they're at the transitions which do end up receiving more pressure. You don't have to use all 150 feet of the 3-inch hose. In fact, I recommend that you use enough hose that you need to get around the building and everything. But for purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to use the 150 feet so we don't have to cut it all off again. And go ahead and I do recommend putting some duct tape around this because these things can be wicked. They'll slice your hand. So you can put some duct tape around that later at your convenience. Come up a little bit further, you're on the shoulder. There you go. And once we get this all clamped up, you can just keep all this together and you'll be set for the next job. Okay, at the end of this hose, we do add that bevel so that it can slide up into the wall easier. Now, brand new hose is always stiff. This will loosen up over time, but this is really good hose. It's going to last you a long time. Now, remember the airlock gauge or the airlock slide right there?
Yes.
Okay. When we're going to measure the pressure, we're going to push that all the way in. So go ahead and push in that gate. So now we have our blower set at around 5. That's a good starting place. Our gate is pushed all the way in. The reason we're pushing the gate all the way in is so that we can stop the air from coming back up into the hopper. We want the airlock pressure to be measured right there at that gauge. So go ahead and turn the air on, only air. And then I'm going to cup my hand over the end of the hose, and that gauge will go up. Too high, isn't it? Back it down the floor. Keep backing it down as you need. And that's how you set your pressure. Now, let's say you remove a section of hose, you got to calibrate it once again and find out what the pressure is, because you remove a piece of hose, you're changing the pressure overall. So that's very good. We have 150 feet of 3-inch hose with 50 feet of 2-inch hose going down to 8 feet of 1.5 inch, and we were able to, with good, solid, brand new airlock seals, be at around half of the blower speed. So you don't even need the blower all the way up. Now, when you're going to start adding the material, we're going to back that airlock gauge slide gate out 4 inches, and we're going to start there with our material. And if you think I can go a little bit faster, then open it up 1-inch increments at a time. You can then even increase your blower too as well. So over time, experience and moving from one hole to the next, you'll get a good rhythm. But having that airlock gauge at 4 inches and your blower control right around 4.5 it is right now, that's a great speed. Okay? Any questions? No. Perfect.
All right, go ahead.
If you were to ever drop a knife into the hopper, or insulation bag gets caught down in there and it's going to create problems, the fastest, easiest way to shut this machine off is just to hit that red button in. Now sometimes throughout moving around, people walking by the machine, it's possible somebody might hit bump that red thing. And if you're finding that you're all connected up at the job site and it's not working, make sure that that red light is on. When that red light is on, it means you got power. Okay? Okay, why don't I show you how to tear this machine down a little bit. We're not going to get into it. Let me go get the tools first. Go ahead. So you can easily remove the top here, the hopper, in order to get into the base, and then the base is where your airlock screws are. So first of all, we're going to unplug from the base those 3 plugs. And notice that there are 3 different lengths, so you can only plug them in.
Yeah. There's only 2.
You've got 2 of them. Okay. Now, some people like to grab the hydraulic tools or the electric ratchets and everything. I don't recommend that, because these bolts are not that difficult and they should only be put back snugly. They should not be put back with any kind of torque. So
impact don't come into play.
if you want to use an impact, use it very delicately.
Level 1.
Huh? And so all you need to do to release this is just release it enough. Don't try to take that nut all the way off. Now, 2 guys, yep. Rotate it back, and then lift it up. And then you can set it right down. Now, here's your airlock. You'll notice that we have a few things here. We call these auger wipers. And even though we have more holes than necessary, you only really need 10. So we sell these in a pack of 10. What these do is sometimes cellulose manufacturers and fiberglass manufacturers are starting to really compress their materials just so that they can get more bags on a semi-load. And the more compression means that they're harder to break up. So these bumpers here help bump the material back up a little bit to agitate it a little bit more. So it's not necessary for every material that's out there, but we provide them with every machine. Okay, so underneath here, if we pull this out, if we unlatch the slide gate for the airlock, you can see that we now have the airlock, and we have airlock seals. Now these seals over time will need to be replaced. Okay, so we suggest if you were to use this machine every day, every 6 to 8 months you'll be replacing them. Okay, let me open up the front panel here.
All right. Where can I stand to get this? All right.
There is always that temptation to speed things up, you know, by using, you know, a power tool. But some of these screws here, you don't really want to have it slip. You want to make, so I always recommend just using the hand Phillips screwdriver on these things, because one slip of one of those DeWalt batteries strips the head right off. And one person impacted them in, and I couldn't take them out, so we had to drill the screws out, which is not a real crisis, but just made for, yeah, just made for unnecessary spending of time, because they're not put in with power tools, they're put in hand. These are handmade machines. And so we're going to lift the front panel off. Lifting the front panel off now exposes a few different things. You have this motorcycle chain. Okay, so when you lubricate this chain, do not use a multi-purpose lubricant. The reason is because it creates a sticky residue, which then causes the chain to pick up more material and dust. So what we recommend is that you get what's called chain and cable lube. It's like motorcycle chain. It's more wax based, so it repels the dirt and dust. And what you'll do is, when you want to maintain this, just go ahead and, you know, run. You can even run the machine and let these spin around as you're doing this, okay? So at the end of each of these augers, we have triple sealed bearings. We have one there, we have one here, and one there. And you do need to keep them greased. And so just to attach this, and as you will, just pump until you see the grease start to bleed out. I recommend getting one of these nice little locking things, because this is really a nice little gizmo. You know how hard it is to get those things jammed onto a Zerk fitting sometimes. That's essentially how to break down your machine to get to it and to change out the airlock seals. I do have another video that shows the complete process. One on each side, or yeah, one in the front, one in the back will work. And then just set the back in first. And you'll feel the lip on the back. Yeah, set it down and you slide it back to the lip. And then let the front down. And it fits in nicely, real quick.